My background, I've had sort of an odd patchwork background. I started off in cognitive science in undergraduate work. This was long enough ago that I had to create my own major. There was no cognitive science major, so I had to cobble the thing together myself. From there, I worked as a software engineer and then went into user interface design. And in the mid-90s, decided that I could actually make the leap into doing game design as a job. So my brother and I started a company called Archetype Interactive, and we created the first 3D massively multiplayer online game, a game called Meridian 59, published that in 1996. And throughout all this time was sort of trying to orient myself to get into academia at some point. So I did some, through our work with DARPA, I was able to do some original AI work and publish that work, and do some teaching along the way, and that set me up to come here. So currently I'm working on teaching, of course, in our new game design program, which launches in the fall, teaching a game industry course and a systems design course. And then in my own creative efforts, I'm working on a tabletop game, a board game about town building together, and then working on a couple of more speculative video game projects. One of the things about being at IU is I have the ability to work on things that are a little more pushing the envelope, a little more speculative, that may not be ready for prime time. Whereas in industry, we just didn't have that luxury. So this is one of the great things about being here. So what led me to become an advocate for really underrepresented voices were a number of experiences that I had in the games industry. In particular, I worked for a while at Maxis, which was a division of EA, Electronic Arts, where we had the highest proportion of women to men in the games industry at that time. From there, I went to another studio that had a much lower proportion of women to men, and the difference to me was stark, both in terms of the culture of the place, but also in terms of the kind of work that we did. And since then, I've had numerous experiences working with women, and not that there's anything wrong with white males. I happen to be one, but with other people who are not typically represented as well. And I just believe that they bring much richer voices, and we get better work done, and we have a better culture as a result. So this is something that I believe we need to push from sort of the ground up, certainly at the undergraduate level, preferably even earlier than that. So one of the instances that really illustrated to me the difference between having a predominantly male culture and a more diverse culture was when I was at Maxis, a division of Electronic Arts. We were working on an early version of The Sims, and I was working with and around many other women and people from other cultures as well. Maxis was a very diverse place. And it was just immediately clear to me that the viewpoints that women in particular brought, as well as people from other cultures brought, to the work we were doing, just broadened our palette. It was like having more colors to paint with. In terms of shaping the next generation, I think we're already seeing a lot of effects from more diverse teams, many different kinds of people getting into game development for a lot of reasons, including the fact that it's just easier to learn the tools and to access the markets than it was before. We see a lot more different kinds of games now than we did 10 or 20 years ago, even 5 years ago. And I believe this is really at just the beginning stages. We're seeing games that don't necessarily involve violence, that have new kinds of storytelling, that attract a much wider audience, that speak to many more kinds of people. In terms of what the games industry can offer education and vice versa, I think one of the things that a lot of game developers have come to realize is that all games teach. The question is, are we designing them intentionally to teach or not? Designing games intentionally to teach turns out to be very difficult to do. It turns out to be difficult to do well so that people actually play the games. And if they don't play educational games, then those games don't continue to get made. I think the one thing that really excites me, and there's a lot of things that excite me, I get very excited by this very easily, but the one thing that really excites me is there is a close and deep and kind of unexpected connection between games and systems. And that may sound a little abstract, but one of the points we're making here with our curriculum is that systems are all around us. The thing that I've been saying is that understanding systems, being able to think in systems, is as important for the 21st century as literacy was for the 20th century. That if we can't think in systems, we aren't going to do very well. And this goes from everything from financial systems, we'll look at what's happening in Greece today, climate change, all kinds of things that are all require systems thinking. And the best way to teach systems thinking is through games and game design. So I think what IU can offer that I haven't seen anyplace else is a really cohesive program, and a particular type of cohesive program, because there are several other very good game programs out there. But there are a few things that we set out to do when we were creating this curriculum. The first is to make sure that every student graduates having created, launched, and run a game. so that when they go out into the industry or when they go out on their own, they know what they're doing. They haven't had the first third of the process, but not the last important 2/3 of the process. And as a hiring manager in industry, this is something I've seen a lot. So there's that, and then so there's the production side of it, and then on the other end, there's this deep systems orientation that if we can help our students understand how to think in systems and translate those systems into games or other productions, then they'll be well set up to do whatever they want to do, whether it's games or not. I guess just as a last comment, the 2 points that really we've already covered are 2 that are very close to my heart, and I think are really important. One is increasing diversity in game design and game design education overall, and increasing our ability to think in and create systems. These are things that I think are both very long-term. They'll have long-term positive consequences, but they aren't going to show results in the next quarter or the next 6 months. But these are things I think are vitally important, and I really believe are going to be the tent poles of our program here.